Welcome to The Explainer. We are diving straight into a massive architectural shift happening right now in enterprise cybersecurity as we head into 2026. Look, we are literally witnessing a fundamental pivot away from traditional isolated endpoint models, and we're entering this hyper-fast, wild new era of unified agentic security. Okay, let's dive into this because this quote from CrowdStrike CEO George Kurtz perfectly captures the wild frontier we are currently facing. Think about it. You've got these unmanaged AI agents operating at machine speed inside corporate networks. And without the right controls, letting these non-human identities roam free really is like giving a drunken intern full, unchecked access to your most critical systems. I mean, it's a completely terrifying thought, right? So it makes you wonder, how exactly is the industry pivoting from legacy manual systems to safely control these next-generation AI identities? Because let's be honest, traditional methods, where you rely on human analysts to manually click through endless alerts, they simply cannot keep up with adversaries who are actively weaponizing AI at scale. To really understand where we're going, we first have to look at the stark catalyst that exposed just how fragile the old paradigm really was. Think back to July 2024 and the now infamous Channel File 291 incident. A completely routine, everyday content update triggered a massive, cascading global IT failure. And the crazy part? It wasn't even a core code change. It was just a simple configuration update that caused a fatal issue at the kernel level. The sheer shock of this incident laid bare the extreme danger of relying on a single point of failure for your entire enterprise security posture. Now, why was the specific incident so absolutely catastrophic? Well, because at the time, CrowdStrike held a massive 18% global market share in endpoint protection. That huge reliance caused devastating ripple effects worldwide. You probably remember the major disruptions to Delta Airlines, right? That single failure led to millions of dollars in losses, thousands of canceled flights, and a wave of ongoing lawsuits. It proved that when your endpoint protection is your only wall of defense, a single point of failure takes down the whole shebang. And that is exactly why, as we head into 2026, organizations are actively and urgently looking beyond traditional single-point tools. Endpoints just aren't enough anymore, especially when you're dealing with multi-cloud environments and massive identity blind spots. Add in the completely unpredictable costs as your data ingestion scales, the architecture friction for mature toolchains, and those incredibly strict compliance and data residency rules, well, you can easily see why the market is practically demanding a better alternative. Section 1. The architectural battle. Endpoint first versus platform first.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core difference we're talking about. Looking at the legacy endpoint first approach, all the telemetry and detection logic originates right there at the agent sitting on the device. But in the platform first approach, which is often called unified SecOps, that endpoint is treated as just one data source among many. It seamlessly combines network, cloud, identity, and email telemetry into a single unified data lake.
Now, this architectural shift fundamentally changes how a security operations center, or SOC, functions day to day. It literally changes the very metric of success. In the old model, success was measured by alerts reviewed, which, let's face it, inevitably led to massive analyst burnout. But in 2026, the meaningful differentiator isn't having more alerts to look at. The new success metric is cases autonomously closed. This shift is exactly what makes human alert fatigue a thing of the past.
When we look at the competitor landscape evaluating these alternatives to CrowdStrike, a few distinct players emerge, each with their own unique strengths. A recent Palo Alto Networks report highlights their own Cortex platform as the best overall alternative for SOC transformation because it unifies SOC, endpoint, exposure, and attack surface management. Then you have Sentinel-1, which is incredibly strong on autonomous endpoint protection, and Trend Micro, known for unified XDR and a really solid track record in Linux protection. They are all aggressively challenging the traditional model by broadening the entire scope of defense. Section 2. The Agentic Security Revolution. So what exactly do we mean when we say agentic? Well, an agentic SOC is a platform that goes way, way beyond just being a helpful little AI chatbot. We're talking about a platform that autonomously investigates alerts, builds complete evidence chains, and executes or recommends responses without needing a human to prompt it at every single step. It's a system that reasons, decides, and acts at machine speed, while, importantly, keeping humans in the loop for oversight and final approvals. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can see an AI agent actually acting on behalf of the user. Taking CrowdStrike's Charlotte AI response flow as an example, you can see how it forms decision trees, asks and answers successive questions across completely different data sources, and then triages a verdict. It's taking all that incredibly tedious heavy lifting right out of the initial investigation phase.
Taking it a step further, large language model inferencing now operates directly within SOAR platforms. Just imagine Charlotte AI autonomously orchestrating complex actions, like analyzing a smishing attack, for example. It dynamically creates cases, checks enrichment tools, and it even composes customer notifications. It's essentially the predictability of security automation combined perfectly with the adaptability of AI reasoning.
But it is worth asking, how do the top players approach this differently? Well, Palo Alto's Cortex XIM with Agentic is built from the ground up to natively unify SIEM, XDR, and SOAR for autonomous operations right out of the box. In stark contrast, CrowdStrike's Charlotte AI approach focuses on building fleets of custom, highly specialized agents that plug into their existing Falcon modules. So you're really looking at two fundamentally different philosophies on how to achieve that critical autonomous response.
Section 3. The Identity Acquisition Spree.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because you really just have to look at the sheer scale, speed, and massive price tags of CrowdStrike's strategic land grab in identity and browser security. I mean, in just over 2 years, they've spent billions. Most recently, they dropped $750 million on SNGL and $420 million on Certific Security in January 2026 alone. They are moving incredibly fast to secure this new attack surface. Now, these acquisitions aren't just your standard Wall Street business news. They are absolutely foundational to the technology we've been discussing today. As George Kurtz noted, combining these assets gives them a true next-gen identity platform. This is the essential groundwork they need to manage the complex access requests of human employees and, crucially, to put reliable guardrails on those unpredictable, autonomous AI agents. You know, the drunken interns we talked about at the very beginning of the explainer. Because today, a modern platform requires some very specific capabilities to actually combat these threats. Validated by perfect scores in a recent GigaOM report, this approach requires deep visibility into non-human identities and a completely unified architecture across your identity, your endpoint, and the cloud. You absolutely need all of these pieces talking to each other to continuously monitor risk and eliminate those incredibly dangerous standing privileges. So, the crucial point is this. The paradigm has irreversibly shifted. The days of relying on a single endpoint agent to trigger thousands of manual alerts for an exhausted team are completely over. As you evaluate your own infrastructure in this crazy era of machine speed AI attacks, you really have to ask yourself, is your 2026 cybersecurity stack built for alerts, or is it built for autonomy? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I really hope it gave you some powerful insights to take back to your team. See you next time.